Welcome back. And I feel like I need to say welcome back to myself as much as I am saying welcome back to you. It has been a while. Um, didn't I think my last episode was back in December. I had thought I might do one every couple weeks, but that has shifted for me as well. So I'm really just allowing things to integrate at their own pace. And then when I feel I have something to share and something to externalize, I am recording. If you follow me over on Instagram, you will know that most of my day-to-day process is shared over there on Instagram stories. And then what I'm noticing I really enjoy doing is externalizing sort of bigger concepts or excuse me, externalizing some of the bigger shifts that I'm making. So things that would really kind of perhaps change the way that I'm approaching an aspect of my life or change the way I'm approaching my business, something that really shifts my perspective. And one of the things that I had been observing and noticing, particularly as we were coming up to January 1st, which is the start of the calendar new year. One of the things I noticed is, of course, the increase of self development, self improvement, um, success this and success that sort of stuff that was percolating in the online space. And the conversation that I want to have with you today is a concept I think that I've been processing and kind of playing with myself for the past several months. I think it was really highlighted for me in both December and January. And I am finally ready to talk about it. I'm finally ready to share my personal experience with you, my thoughts with you on this particular topic. So, I am calling this episode How Self Development Causes Self Harm. And so, of course, you're going to hear a mix of a few different things as I talk. So, I think it's always important for you to understand who I am, not just from a professional and kind of on paper perspective, but also who I am according to design. So you're going to hear my external vision. You're going to hear my personal view for sure. Guilt motivation. I mean, I can't help but see the things that really need to be fixed. And I'm really going to be sharing my perspective on an industry that I think at the end of the day probably does more harm than good and is doing more harm than good. And you're also going to be hearing Judgment Sense as well as my own inner grappling with the hypocrisy that is inherent in my sixth line personality. So, when you're a sixth line, there's a little hypocrisy that is mixed in with our role modeling of concepts. And this topic is no different. I mean, there was definitely a time where I was deep into the self development world. I was one of these so called success gurus. And so I'm really here to tell the story of my experience and the awakening, I think, that has happened for me and how that has shifted a lot of things. So, I want to start by sharing just a few statistics with you so we can put this conversation into context. And then I'm just going to share some of my thoughts. So, based on the stats, the self development industry was valued at just over $35 million in 2020. So, just a few years ago. And it's projected to reach over $51.6 million by 2028. So, I think we can probably all agree that there are definitely some benefits to this particular industry. There are probably lots of benefits to this particular industry. We have probably all benefited in some way from accessing resources that allow us to improve our quality of life. And one of the things that I have observed over the last little while, and I would say this really ramped up in 2020 with the pandemic, everything moving online, the world shutting down, lots of things increased during that time, things like anxiety. Um, and lots of things decreased during that time as well. Things like resourcefulness, I think. We saw a lot of shifts within humanity. And one of the things that I have noticed in the past couple of years is there has been a significant increase in the messaging and the prevalence of what I'm going to call online success gurus. And I'm including myself in this pack because I would say that I was definitely on the train of the online success guru, self proclaimed online success guru. And, this archetype I think has taken on many different variations, the millionaire coach, to the motivational speaker, um, to the, business strategist. I mean, there are so many different variations to this archetype. And I have been observing myself in response to content that I am seeing in the online space related to self development, self improvement. And as I stay rooted in my own awareness, as I stay connected to the wisdom that can only be found through my body awareness and through my solar plexus authority, what I'm finding comes up for me more often than not is this constricting feeling. So when I observe content that is geared about, moving to the next level, up leveling, success skills, um, all of the language that is so commonly used, goal setting, I mean, achieve, 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 achieve. When I hear this language being used in the online space, and I observe this content while remaining rooted in my own awareness, I immediately notice a constriction. I immediately notice that something happens to my own sense of who I am, my own sense of self. There is this feeling that of not enoughness that comes over me. There's this feeling that I am not doing enough, I am not being enough, I am not achieving enough, I am not making enough, and on and on and on. It goes on and on and on. And so this really intense feeling of not enoughness really tends to take over. So for example, I could start out my day feeling pretty good. I could start out my day feeling pretty clear in my own mind and having a sense of peace in my own body. And then I can become bombarded with all of the noise that we find online, all of the noise that we find on our social platforms, all of the speakers, all of the motivational speakers, all of the programs that people are selling, all of the results that people are selling, all of the lifestyle that people are selling. And immediately I was noticing this unsettled feeling inside of my own body. And then my not self. would get really loud. My not self mind, my not self thoughts would get really, really loud for me. And I have personal view. And so for me, this is something that I do really need to be aware of. And I need to watch my mind. My transference is to power view. And what I was finding is that I was so quickly and so easily getting transferred into power view. Who's up, who's down, who's winning, who's losing. And of course, that never feels good, right? When I'm in transference, um, when I'm in distraction, it never feels good. Never feels good. And I was noticing that that would happen almost every time I opened my phone up and I went onto Instagram or Facebook. I don't really use Facebook very much anymore, but I did. I certainly did. And I noticed that I would um be put into my own distraction very, very quickly. I noticed it felt really uncomfortable for me. So, from a practical perspective, I have been very intentional about no longer following accounts that perpetuate the idea that I am not good enough and that I need to do better and be better and all of those sorts of things. Um, I started unfollowing accounts that really do perpetrate a hustle mentality, even if we've become more sophisticated, right, with our marketing. We've become more sophisticated with our language. We've softened our language. We've softened our marketing approaches, right? Most people know now that pain point marketing is like a no no. We don't do pain point marketing. But then we've simply transitioned it to really painting a picture of the desired lifestyle of the person selling, said product, right? And so it's the same thing. It's just a more sophisticated psychological tool, psychological tactic that really manipulates a person's self-esteem. And so while the language online has become more sophisticated, I actually believe it's even more manipulative because it's being hidden behind words like pleasure and energetics and all of these sort of softer, more flow. There's more flowy language, right? We're not using the language that was thought of as traditionally very masculine ways of marketing. We've softened that language to appeal to the psyche in a new way, right? This, I think the population has become more awake. We've become more aware. And so now the marketing tactics have shifted. And so we're seeing a lot more of this, this is what my life looks like. And this is the lifestyle that maybe you want. This is what your life could look like. And let me show you how. Um, and I've sort of lost my train of thought, but what do I want to say about this? I guess it makes me sad. It does make me sad when I see the ways in which we are manipulating people, when I see the ways in which have been manipulated. And sixth line hypocrisy. Perhaps my marketing has also been manipulative in the past. There's a heaviness for me around all of those pieces. I mean, almost every business coaching program that I have, well, okay, every business coaching program that I have been in um, has taught, has used psychology in a way to achieve certain outcomes that benefit the business owner. Um, and so I'm grappling with a lot of that. I'm grappling with being a professional, being a coach, that was part of the industry that I now look at and I see it through very different eyes. I see it through the eyes of the people that we serve. I see it through the eyes of the harm that we perpetuate when we constantly bombard people with the idea that somehow they need to change who they are, or they need to change how they are showing up to their own life in order to achieve some level of success that for most people it's really elusive. These concepts, right? These concepts are, they're kind of hard to pin down, and I feel they're becoming harder and harder to pin down. It's this feeling of, well, what am I actually working on? What am I actually working towards? I find even the language that is being used in the self-development space is really, the word is escaping me. It's like mysterious. The words are mysterious. It's like, what exactly am I getting? And what exactly are we going to be working on? And what exactly is the outcome? And I I have this very intense feeling that when we are not in our awareness, when we're not awake to what's happening around us, that more and more people are getting sucked into this abyss. I've done it. I've been sucked into the abyss. I've invested in coaches, in programs that were really shiny, and I was taken. I was totally taken by uh, some of these promises. Um, and it really, for me, spoke to, where was my self image, right? Where was I at? What felt like it was missing for me, that I sort of got sucked in by these external appearances. So I've had several experiences where I've been pulled into the self development world, the need to improve myself. I've also been part of the problem. I've perpetuated um, the problem. Yeah, that's a hard one for me to sit with, but really an important part of my process to externalize that. And I also have many clients, many members of my community who reach out to me privately and share explicitly their own experiences of feeling truly not good enough in the online space. Share with me experiences of having invested, I mean, some hundreds of thousands of dollars into working with a variety of different coaches and in a variety of different programs where the promise was to have a certain lifestyle. The promise was to have a certain income. The promise was to have a certain emotional experience of life. And when it came right down to it, what I hear over and over and over again is, I couldn't get there. I couldn't achieve those results. It was not effortless. It was not, my life was not filled with ease. Like, simply shifting my mindset was not enough for me to find satisfaction as a generator, or success as a projector, or peace as a manifester or surprise as a reflector. It simply wasn't enough for me to experience my signature. And instead, what I experienced was the opposite, were those not self themes of anger, of bitterness, of frustration, right? Those are the pieces that really came up, disappointment over and over and over again. And this all resonates. I can resonate with every one of these experiences. Every client that tells me, every community member that reaches out to me privately in DMs, and I have a lot of entrepreneurs in particular that reach out to me and say to me, "Oh my gosh, I have invested so much money in the self development space with the hope that it would get me X, Y, and Z. And it didn't. And the only thing it left me with was this shame around investing that kind of money and this real sense of frustration, bitterness, anger, disappointment that I did not get the results that are promised, whether those results are promised overtly or covertly, right? There's this real unsettling, anxiety provoking feeling when we don't get the self improvement, the self development, the whatever it is that we were hoping for. I really don't know where this conversation is going today. I don't script my episodes. I don't even do bullet point notes anymore. I did pull the stats because I wanted to have those stats for you guys. I guess I'm recording this episode for a couple of reasons. One is a selfish reason. Um, and six lines, there's a selfishness to us. It's part of being a sixth line. And I have been called selfish all my life. So, yeah, I guess there is some truth to that. The selfish reason is I really needed a space to grapple with and externalize the hypocrisy of being part of an industry that I now look at with judgment sense, that I now look at with guilt motivation kicking in really strong and wanting to fix it. I do. I want to fix the industry. I want to fix it. I'm motivated to fix it. I'm motivated to change things. I'm motivated to do things differently. I'm motivated to have more honest and transparent conversations with my audience and with my clients and with myself. And in order for me to really step into that, I need to admit where I have failed. Yeah. Yeah. I need to be able to say to you, my audience, I have taken part in an industry that I think actually does more harm than good. I need to say to you that I took part in the world of self development that I now believe causes self harm. It's it's been a hard shift to make. It's been a really hard pill to swallow. I'm still coming to terms with it. Still coming to terms with it. Um, yeah, something that I talk about with, my closest friends. Um, something I'm still processing. It's something I'm still witnessing and observing. I can still feel the constriction in my body even now as I admit these things and as I express these things. Um, I'm going to be 46 soon. My birthday's in March, early March. I literally feel like I'm moments away from 46. As a sixth line, my eyes see that third phase coming up. I see it. I feel it. It's so palpable. Um, and I might have said it in another episode. I don't know. But I feel very deeply the pressure, and not in a bad way. Pressure is not always a bad thing, not in like a I've got an open route, like not in an open route pressure kind of way, but I do feel the push. It's coming. That third phase of my life's journey is upon me. I literally feel I'm moments away from it, friends. I see it in my mind's eye all the time. All the time. I see it in my mind's eye. Chiron return, that third phase, just a few years away. And I'm already in that 7-year cycle, right? Like I'm already like in the throes of it. I mean, can't even describe the feeling in my body with regards to that. And as I look ahead in just a few short years, it's time for me to come off the roof. In just a few short years, it's time for me to show up in the world as the embodied role model. Wow. That's big. That feels really big for me right now. And so having these types of conversations is important, really, really important to me. Really important to me. Having difficult conversations, having honest conversations, having vulnerable, transparent conversations, I feel like is the work that I am doing right now in this season of my life. Man, this podcast episode is taking a bit of a turn. I hope you're still with me. I have a defined solar plexus, right? And the not self theme of the undefined solar plexus is avoiding truth and confrontation, avoiding truth and confrontation. But the truth is that this defined emotional being that you are listening to has avoided a lot of truth and confrontation in her life. Yeah. And the need, the the need that I feel to have more truth and more confrontation is really big for me right now. And I guess what this episode ended up really being about for me is having that truth and that confrontation with you, my audience, my clients, my community. Um, your trust in me, I might get emotional now. Yep. Okay, so this is what the episode was about. Your trust in me is of utmost importance to me. It's really important, It's funny being a six line, our bonding strategy is soulmate or not. And I recognize that that's not just with my partner, like soulmate or not. It's with my friends, it's with my clients, it's with my team members. It's if you are a part of my life, there is no way you don't impact me. And if you are an intimate part of my life, I hope I impact you. I want to impact you. And in order to do that for me with the greatest level of integrity, trust is so important. Like that trust needs to be there. And I know trust is something that's built over time, and it can shift. It's a concept that moves. It's an experience that moves and shifts inside of relationships. And I think for me to deepen my relationship with my audience, in order for me to deepen my relationship with you, and in order for me to show up in the fullness of what I'm called to by design, I needed to have this conversation with you. I needed to have this truth and this confrontation with you and with myself. Because that's what I realized about truth and confrontation. It has to happen with me first before I can externalize it and before I can express it and before I can have the hard conversation. It always starts with me. And it usually starts with a really icky feeling of like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. That is not sitting right. And so here we are. We seem to be coming to some kind of logical conclusion somehow. Um, I think what this was all about for me was my own process of observing how icky I felt being part of the self-development industry, and then being that sixth line hypocrite, sort of looking at it from the outside and going, ugh, what's going on over there? Recognizing that I was right in it. I was right in the mix of all the success gurus. Um, yeah. And then needing to speak on that, needing to really, like, I have a message about this. I have guilt motivation. I have a deep desire to fix this. And I can only do that in integrity if I share this truth with you, if I have this level of confrontation around the part that I've played in the industry. Well, I'm going to have to make sure all of this goes into the show notes because I was not expecting to do this today. I was not expecting to apologize because that's actually what my body wants to do right now. I want to say I am sorry for being a part, taking part in an industry that can leave many, many, many people feeling like they are not good enough. And an industry that creates within it an inherent power differential. An industry that continues and will continue, that's the truth, it will continue to make millions and millions of dollars at the expense of our self-esteem and our self-worth. Yeah. And I want to say that I am ready to do it differently. I'm not going to get it perfect. Still going to mess up. Yeah. This stuff is so ingrained. Um, but I do want to be a different voice in the online space. I do want to have authentic and rich relationships with my community and my clients. I want the space and the freedom to grow in the way that I am growing, especially over the next few years. The next few years, I'm excited for the next few years of my sixth line process. I'm excited for what 46, 47, 48, 49 bring me. I'm excited for who I am becoming as I relearn the truth that who I am by design, who I am in my most authentic nature is exactly who I am meant to be in this lifetime. And I think that's it. I think that's all I've got. I hope I hope this was, I don't know, helpful, enlightening. I don't know. I'd be curious. Why don't you tell me what this episode was like for you to listen to? It was really good for me to record it. It was really good for me to have this conversation and to speak this truth and to be able to process in this way with you. I'll see you next time.